Getting started with FPV drones has quite literally never been easier or cheaper than it is right now. There's hundreds of different options, all ranging in price and quality, so much so that it's actually become a difficult choice for beginners starting out. So in today's video, I'll show you exactly what FPV gear you should buy depending on your budget, everything you need to get flying, and I've made sure that everything works together so you aren't left with a drone that doesn't fly. I'm starting off at $100 US, leaping up by $100 with each bundle, and ending with the ultimate FPV drone setup, so you'll always have the option to choose no matter your budget. Also, you can download a PDF version of every bundle mentioned in this video, so that way you don't have to keep rewatching this, you can just reference that instead. I put that as the first link down in the description box below, and yes, it is completely free. But look, just before I can show you any of these bundles, you first need to know what it is that makes a drone bundle up. You see, every perfect FPV drone bundle has got 5 things that all work together, and if you're missing even just one of these things, there's no flying happening for you. So, what are they? Well, we have the drone, the remote controller, your pair of goggles, batteries for everything, and a charger too. So now you know what to expect, we can get right on into the exciting part. Starting off with $100. Now, I do have to mention that this is the only bundle today that isn't going to get you the full FPV experience. It's simply just not possible to get everything you need for less than $100. However, in saying this, it's still quite literally perfect if you just want to dip your toes into the world of FPV and really need to stick to the smallest budget possible. Anyways, for the $100 bundle, you'll be picking up the Radio Master Pocket Radio Controller along with 2 18650 batteries. The 2 batteries are what's going inside of the remote to actually power it up. Now, when you're picking out the radio, you might see that you're given the option to choose either ELRS or CC 2500, and also another option to choose your region. In every single case, pick the ELRS option. This is crucial if you want the controller to actually last a long time, but then secondly, unless you live in a European country, pick the FCC region. The LBT region is going to limit your controller's output due to legal restrictions, but if your country doesn't require that, you'll only be hurting your range with your drone. Now, this purchase alone has used up $77 of our budget, leaving us with only one direction for the remaining 23, a simulator. If you've got access to a computer, that is reasonable. I can quite easily recommend DRL as your go-to for learning FPV. However, if you haven't got a computer that runs well, your next best option is to get Velocidrone on mobile. This is the mobile version of my top FPV simulator pick for 2025, so you know you'll be learning with the most realistic and solid simulator available. That then moves us on to the $200 bundle. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, I wonder if I should just go for the $200 bundle instead of the $100 one, I literally could not recommend it more. Starting off and being able to apply your skills to a real FPV drone is so much more exciting of an experience than just flying around in a simulator. So what the heck can you get for $200? Well, you can get this. The Beta FPV Cetus kit, along with an extra 5 Lava 1S 300 mAh batteries. You may be wondering why I sound a bit hesitant to drop this one here, and honestly, it's because this isn't going to be a super high quality introduction, and it's certainly not known to be extremely reliable, but it is the only thing that fits under the $200 budget that will actually get you everything you need to fly with. It's going to get you learning on the sim with a controller, and then when you build up the confidence, you'll have a drone and goggles to set up and experience FPV with. Obviously, we've added some extra batteries which can be charged on the included charger, and I really wouldn't recommend skipping that part either, as otherwise you're going to find the flight time is just way too short. But look, if there was any reason to just squeeze the budget that little bit more to get you over to the $300 budget, here's where my biggest issue comes in. The remote controller uses an outdated connection to talk with the drone, which means as soon as you want to get a new drone, you'll find yourself needing to buy a new controller with a new connection protocol like ELRS. So once you outgrow this drone, and you will, the only half useful thing left over is the batteries and the goggles, but if you just went with the $300 bundle, you'll find that all of these problems disappear. That's why this $300 bundle is actually my recommended minimum starting point for beginners getting started with FPV. All of the equipment is going to last you for as long as you need it to, and better yet, you actually get to choose between 2 different drones depending on where you plan on flying. But don't stress about choosing the right one, I'll guide you on which one is best for you in just a moment. First though, the 4 staple purchases in our $300 budget is our Radiomaster Pocket Radio, of course with our 2 18650 batteries to power it. You'll still need to follow the same steps when picking the version and region as I talked about on the $100 budget. That'll be staying the same from now on whenever I mention the Pocket. Next, you'll be wanting to pick up the Beta FPV VR03 goggles. These again aren't the highest quality, but for their price, they are pretty damn good. And then the final staple is the Vifly Whoopstore V3. I know, it's a friggin' mouthful as well. This is something that I only really stumbled onto recently, but holy crap, it's literally made charging and caring for 1S batteries the simplest thing in the world. But now we need some batteries to charge up on that Whoopster, and this is where you get to make a choice. We've got the Beta FPV Air 65 paired up with the Lava 1S 300 mAh batteries, or its bigger brother, the Beta FPV Air 75 with its equally larger Lava 1S 450 mAh batteries. Now, just before you scoff this off as bigger is always better, you really need to take a moment to decide where you're going to be able to fly around. If you're in a city or a place with crap weather all the time, you'll probably be flying more indoors than anything, which is where the smaller Air 65 really shines. If, however, you plan on flying outdoors and have bigger spaces to learn in, the Air 75 is a really solid choice here. Just make sure whatever drone you choose that you pick the right batteries for it as well. Alrighty, that then brings us onto the $400 bundle. From this point forward, you're going to start to see some similarities in the equipment, but every budget range will be upgrading something that's going to make your purchase even more future-proof than before. So, for $400, I'm choosing the Air 75 as the go-to drone. You can still pick the Air 65 too if it really suits you better, but I think a beginner will benefit from the higher power and longer flight times of the Air 75 more as they progress. Anyways, following on from that, we've got the Pocket Radio, 18650 batteries, VR03 goggles, and the Whoopster V3 charger. Instead of just picking up one set of the 450 mAh batteries, we're increasing it to 2 sets of 550 mAh 1S batteries instead. I'm also adding on a few spare parts that I've had break on me after plenty of crashes. So we've got 2 spare Air 75 frames, a spare air canopy, a 4-pack of 2300 kV motors, and 2 spare sets of Gemfan 40mm props. Now if you're thinking, holy shit, you've completely lost me there, Brody, don't stress, now's the time to go and download that PDF version that I mentioned earlier. You can reference that as we go through the rest of the video, and you'll be able to see everything in a super easy to view layout. Now that leaves us with a really solid FPV tiny whoop setup that will last and grow with you as you get better. However, for some people, a tiny whoop might simply not be what gets you excited enough to try out the hobby. And if that's you, or you just really want a bigger, faster, and louder drone, it's time to introduce you to the First FPV drone bundle with a 5-inch FPV drone included. These drones are the sort that can be used for cinematic flights, freestyle, and even racing. Although there are better options for racing specifically, but I'm not talking about that today. To start off our $500 bundle, we've got yet again the Pocket Radio, 18650 batteries, and the VR03 goggles. But that's where the similarities end. Our new drone of choice is the iFlight Nazgul Eco. It's a really solid 5-inch FPV drone that honestly couldn't be much more perfect for beginners. When picking the drone, just make sure that you select the ELRS 2.4 GHz version, as this is what's going to work with your Pocket Radio. Now, in terms of powering up our drone, we're looking at 2 of the CNHL Speedy Pizza 1200 mAh 6S LiPo batteries. Sheesh, man, these things are just a mouthful and a half to say, but we got there. Now, I do want to mention on top of this too, though, that there is the option to go to 4S batteries instead. I've literally never flown a 4S battery before, like never, and I think they're a little bit redundant today. I say this as all a 4S battery really does is limit the amount of power going to your drone, and if you know a few tricks, there's so many ways to temporarily decrease your drone's power for free rather than investing in 4S battery packs. So if you want honest, down-to-earth advice, just go for the 6S packs. You're not going to regret it in the long run. Now, following on from all that, the charger of choice is the exact same one that I personally daily drive, and it's the Toolkit RC M6 AC. It's got a small power supply inside of it, so you won't be needing anything other than a wall plug for this bad boy to power on up. You probably noticed that the $500 budget didn't really leave you with much flight time, and that's even going $7 over the budget too, so literally the only thing that changes in the $600 budget is the battery quantity. I'm upping the Speedy Pizza 1200 mAh batteries from 2 all the way up to 5. That way, you'll be able to get out for much longer flight sessions, and honestly, you're just gonna learn things so much faster as well. Okay, now for the $700 bundle. This is where the upgrades really start to make some serious leaps in quality, but with these big leaps in quality, that does mean that our quantity takes a bit of a hit. For this bundle, the VR03 goggles, Nazgul Eco Drone, and Toolkit RC all remain the exact same. We unfortunately have to bring our Speedy Pizza batteries down to a total of 4 instead of 5. However, it does allow us to get the biggest upgrade yet, our remote controller. Instead of the pocket radio with the 18650 batteries, we're swapping out for my all-time favorite RC, the Radio Master Boxer Crush. Now, the Crush edition is specifically my favorite thanks to the fact that it comes with full metal gimbals installed at a really great price. To power this radio up, we're swapping from 8650 batteries over to a 2S 7.4 volt 6200 milliamp hour LiPo battery, which is another upgrade that just lets this RC run without charging for stupidly long periods of time. Oh, I nearly forgot to mention as well, please make sure you're getting the ELRS version of this controller. As of currently, I can't see any other options on Radio Master's site, but I needed to put that out there just in case it changes. Talking about changes, now's a great time to bring in the $800 bundle, which solves one massive time-wasting issue. For this bundle, everything is the exact same as well, except we're adding an extra battery pack to the Speedy Pizzas and also swapping out our charger to the Toolkit RC M6D AC. You see, the problem before with 5 batteries on the M6 AC is that you'd have to wait for every battery to charge up one by one, which is honestly just painful. The M6 DAC charger introduces an additional charging port so you can safely charge 2 batteries at the same time. Now, you might have heard about the option of parallel charging boards, which isn't actually a bad shout, but only, and I mean only, if you know exactly what you're doing with LiPos. I've made a battery guide video in the past that goes through everything a beginner needs to know about batteries, but the best takeaway from this right now is don't parallel charge if you don't understand what you're doing. Stick to the M6 DAC charger with 2 separate battery ports and you'll be happy days. Now, this $900 bundle is gonna raise some eyebrows because we're actually temporarily downgrading our biggest upgrade so far. So for this bundle, we're back to the pocket radio with 18650 batteries, and we're also back to the M6 AC charger again too. We're keeping the Speedy Pizza batteries at 4, and the drone is still the Nazgul Eco, so what the hell could warrant such a big change? Well, in this bundle, we are finally swapping out the VR03 goggles and bringing in my personal favorite pair of FPV goggles for beginners, the HD0 Box Pros. Now, I've made an entire video on why these are amazing, so I'll spare you the details, but just know that these are worth every dollar. You also need to know that these won't power on without an additional battery source either. Hence why this bundle includes another battery called the Orline VT-C6 3000 mAh 3S XT60 lithium-ion battery. I can't tell you just how much I hate battery names after making this video. God damn. Anyways, getting the XT60 version is pretty important as that's what the Box Pros come standard with connection-wise. If you happen to stumble across a larger capacity 3S battery, by all means, just pick that one up instead. For the $1,000 bundle though, we're getting pretty close to having a peak analog setup. Not quite, as you'll see in just a moment, but very close. In this bundle, we're rocking the Boxer Crush with its 2S battery, the Box Pros with their 3S battery, 6 of the Speedy Pizza batteries, the M6 AC charger, and of course, the Nazgul Eco. And instead of focusing too heavily on that bundle, I actually want to move us straight on over to the very exciting place in the video. For the $1,100 budget, I have split your choice between having what I would consider an insanely great FPV analog drone setup, ready for you to be able to upgrade it later on down the line if you want to, but also between a reasonably good starting place for a digital setup. Although, there are a few downsides which I'll talk about with that one. So, in the $1,100 analog setup, everything is the exact same as before, except I've swapped out the M6 AC charger for the M6 DAC charger to give you that additional charging port. Literally everything else is already pretty high up there in terms of quality and quantity, so much so that I'm saying this is about as much as I would spend getting started with analog. For the digital option, however, this is actually where I would start. You've got the Boxer Crush radio with its 2S battery, 5 of the Speedy Pizza batteries, and back down to the M6 AC charger again. Our big changes come along with the drone and the goggles. Now, the The drone is honestly the best value for money drone I have ever seen with an HD system pre-installed. It's literally over $100 cheaper than the iFlight competition, so it's really a no-brainer. The drone of choice here is the GepRC Vapor D5 04 Pro version. Yes, you heard me correct there. This isn't the low-quality standard 04 air unit. This is DJI's top-of-the-line 04 Pro. Now, although the drone has basically no compromises, the goggles is where things get a little bit tricky. I've put the DJI Goggles N3 as the pick here, which happen to be DJI's cheapest and more budget-friendly FPV goggles. The reason I say these goggles are a bit tricky isn't because of what they can do right now. As a matter of fact, they do exactly what everyone would want them to do right now. But being the budget pair of goggles in DJI's lineup, I can't help but imagine that in the future, these will be the first pair of unsupported FPV goggles when a new system is released. Of course, I could be completely wrong, and honestly, I hope that I am, but based on how DJI treat their previous flagship goggles, I don't really have high hopes for the budget ones going forward. Regardless, however, they work perfectly well with DJI's 04 Pro, and they're a great price. That then moves us on to our $1,200 bundle now. This is really just quality of life improvements because, as you'll soon see, digital upgrades come at a pretty heavy cost in comparison to analog, so everything stays the exact same as the digital $1,100 bundle, except we add 2 more Speedy Pizza batteries, bringing us up to a total of 7, and we also get to upgrade our charger again to the M6 DAC2. Now, what if you wanted to go for a really solid, not quite all-out digital FPV drone setup? Well, I'm so glad that you asked, because personally, this is what I would buy if I wanted to really get into FPV and I was sure I was going digital. For this bundle, we have jumped up to $1,500 now. I know, it's a big increase from $1,200, but there really isn't too much reason to go in between when you get to this stage. So for $1,500, you'll want to pick up the Radiomaster Boxer Crush with its 2S battery, the Vapor D5 04 Pro version, and the M6 DAC charger. I've swapped out the N3 goggles for the flagship DJI Goggles 3, and I've also swapped out the Speedy Pizza batteries for 5 GNB 1500 mAh HV, stands for high voltage, 6S batteries too, which honestly are completely night and day difference. And then finally, I've added on the ISDT Safe Parallel Charging Board. This board allows you to charge 4 batteries up on one charger plug and your 5th battery on the secondary charger plug. However, don't let the word safe deceive you here. This is a parallel charging board, meaning you still need to know what you're doing in order to charge safely. But I think at this stage, when you're spending this amount of money, you might as well learn it. If, however, you'd rather play this game as safe as possible and also have quite literally the best of everything, the $2,100 bundle is for you. I can't think of anything else that I would personally add, and this would literally be the perfect setup, if you had the budget, of course. Obviously, you'll still be wanting to practice on a simulator first, but for when you are capable of flying in real life, there's going to be no piece of gear holding you back at all. Zero excuses. So, in this all-out $2,100 bundle, we've got the following. Firstly, the Boxer Crush with its 2S battery. Secondly, the flagship DJI Goggles 3. Thirdly, 10 of the GNB 1500 mAh high voltage batteries. Then, not just 1, but 2 of Toolkit RC's 4-port chargers, meaning you'll have 8 separate battery ports ready to charge up at any time. These chargers are called the Q6 ACs. And then finally, the literal best pre-built FPV drone on the market, in my opinion anyways. It's the iFlight Nazgul Evoke V2 04 Pro with built-in GPS, and of course with LRS 2.4 GHz selected as your version as well. Now, I'm sure by now you've probably got a bundle in mind, but regardless of what you've chosen, you're going to end up having a first flight at some point, which means you need to know what to prep for. That's why this video here runs through the essential settings to change, the equipment to bring with you, and everything that you need to do to make sure your first FPV flight is stupidly easy. I'll see you over there very, very soon.